Okay, so we are live on Facebook. Hello, Facebook world. We're gonna talk tonight. I'm gonna just review a little bit about what we talked about last week on exercise, because it didn't get recorded, and then we didn't have volume, the part that did get recorded. So I'll just kind of do a quick review of some of what we covered last week, and then we'll get into what we didn't get to cover last week. And if you'll remember, I had you imagine that a pharmaceutical company developed a new drug that was a combination antidepressant and tranquilizer. And not only did it, lift the mood and calm the nerves, but it also improved sleep. It helped you lose weight. It would improve your memory, gave you better heart function, and more energy. And did I mention lose weight? Imagine the billions of dollars we would spend to get such a drug, a wonder drug. And yet we do have access to that very thing, and it's free. It's exercise. So, that's not a 4-letter word. It's 2 4-letter words, 8 letters. So, no self-respecting healing school would be complete without a lesson on exercise, but I'll go on record saying I'm not the expert on exercise, nor is this going to be an exhaustive treatise on the subject. But I hope you'll be motivated to, increase your exercise if you're not already on a regular exercise program. Because regular exercise is so important for good health. I mean, it absolutely, next to nutrition and next to, a positive mental outlook, exercise is probably the next most important thing we can do. And so if I could, recommend one cure-all that kind of just did so much for us, it would be to get more exercise in. We all know how important it is, and yet the CDC estimates that only about 20% of Americans meet the recommended amounts of exercise each week, which is at least 2.5 hours minimum of moderate intensity aerobic exercise and 1 hour and 15 minutes of strength training exercise, or a combination of both. So again, we should try to incorporate both because they're both so important. Each one has different benefits that the other one doesn't bring to the table. So we really do need both. So what are the 2 different kinds of exercise are aerobic exercise and anaerobic exercise. So aerobic is, you all know that's that cardio when you're moving large muscle groups and breathing hard and fast. That's aerobic. Examples would be, brisk walking, swimming, jogging, running, playing racquetball, things like that. And anaerobic, which would be like your weight training, your resistance training, these are things that strengthen the muscle. And both help to burn fat, but in different ways. So aerobic exercise helps burn fat because it's burning calories and it's increasing oxygen. And in order to burn fat, you have to have good oxygen. But your weight training helps you burn fat in an indirect way, because the more muscle you have, the more calories you will burn just standing here. A muscular person has a higher metabolism. They burn more calories just sitting, resting, sleeping than someone who doesn't have good muscles. In fact, they burn about 50 to 100 calories more a day than for every pound of muscle you put on, you burn an extra 50 to 100 calories a day. The other benefit of resistance training that you don't find with aerobic, one of the things is that you will increase your bone density and, of course, increase muscle mass. Now, then there's this new thing called interval training, which we covered last week. Real briefly, I'll try to cover that again. It's when you alternate between low intensity and high intensity exercise. So you might be walking along and then you take a sprint, and for 3 minutes you walk as fast as you can to really get your heart rate up good. And then you go back and do a few minutes of regular walking. And you can do this at any level, whether you're starting out walking or whether you're jogging on a treadmill or whatever you're doing. It doesn't matter what exercise you're doing. You can do these interval spurts where you increase your intensity. And this, they're finding, is far more effective at burning fat and calories. And you can get like 20 minutes of this kind of exercise is equivalent to 40 minutes of just, say, walking for 40 minutes straight. So you'll get more benefit, more fat burning, more everything by doing this interval training. So, there's lots of information on the internet if you want to find out a little bit more about it. Now, there's so many benefits of exercise. A lot of times we think, well, the only benefit is to burn calories, but, that's really not the only thing. If you think about it, two pieces of fudge have 350 calories. Well, you'd have to walk for 30 minutes to burn up those calories. So it'd just be easier to leave off the fudge and the exercise. And if that was the only purpose of exercise, that might be true, but it does so much more. The entire body benefits from regular exercise because A, you're improving your cardiovascular, your heart, you're also improving your blood flow to the whole body. And so that's going to help with everything. At the same time, it's carrying waste and carbon dioxide away from the cells and tissues. So it helps with increased energy and stamina. It increases our fitness, which a fit individual is able to respond to more challenging things. If someone who's been inactive and sedentary, some emergency comes up, well, they're not able to handle it. So they're only able to handle, what little bit they do every day. And you think about it, if our bodies aren't used, they will start deteriorating. It's this thing called sarcopenia, the actual technical name for it, where you start deteriorating. If you're not at least doing 20 minutes of exercise 3 times a week, you will enter into sarcopenia, where you actually start deteriorating. You start losing muscle mass, you start deteriorating. So it's kind of like parking a car in a garage. It's when you finally do want to take it out for a spin, it's liable to choke on you and sputter and all that. So your body does the same thing. So, if you want to increase your fitness, you've got to exercise more than just 20 minutes 3 times a week. So then we talked about weight loss last week. How does exercise help us lose weight? Because it's not as simple as you think. I went from exercising 0 hours a week to exercising 3 to 4 or 5 hours a week. And I didn't lose any weight, and I was really mad. And I found out that there's a reason for that. And the reason is that your calories are stored in 2 different places. One is in the muscle itself in the form of glycogen, and the other is in your fat. So it's going to use up the stored energy in your muscle first before it goes to burn up the fat. Well, it takes at least 20 minutes of regular exercise to burn up here, and before it will make that switch and start burning the stored fat. Most people then quit. Before they actually get to that fat burning stage, they've stopped. And so they never get into the fat burning stage. And so, that's a key thing, is you've got to go for longer than 20 minutes, sometimes even more, to really get into the burning of the fat. Studies show that 80% of adult obesity begins in childhood. And they say that childhood obesity is associated more with inactivity than with overeating. I thought that was strange because I see what the kids eat these days. I mean, the junk is just everywhere. And so I figured that's the reason, but they're really saying inactivity is the main reason. And obesity starts in childhood. Well, then 80% of adults are obese because they were obese as children. So it's real important to not let our kids get fat because they will struggle with weight their whole life. And we don't want that. So let's see here. Okay, another secret to using exercise to help you lose weight is the intensity of the workout. To burn fat during exercise, you have to work at about half of your maximum capacity for at least 20 minutes or more. A rule of thumb to gauge intensity is if you can't talk normally, you are incurring oxygen debt and are burning more glycogen than fat. So slow it down just a little. But if you can sing, you're not burning any fat. You need to speed up. Another way that exercise helps us lose weight is because it enhances our insulin sensitivity. Insulin resistance is a major reason why we have a weight problem. Anyone that is overweight, just by virtue of the fact they're overweight, has an insulin resistance problem. Insulin resistance is the next step before you become diabetic. So this is very important for people who have diabetes. Exercise increases your insulin sensitivity, decreases insulin resistance. And last week I talked about insulin resistance as being when your cells become resistant to insulin. So like when you eat something with sugar in it, that sugar is in your blood. Insulin is secreted to try to get the sugar out of the blood and into the cell. If you're insulin resistant, you can't get it in. So that sugar is staying in your blood. And eventually it just will go into fat storage because insulin loves to just store it as fat. If it can't get it in the cell, it rushes it off to fat storage. So, and the other thing is if your blood sugar levels are high, then that inhibits glucagon from being released. And glucagon has to be present to unlock your fat stores to allow fat to be burned. So insulin resistance inhibits that. And so in every way, insulin resistance is not our friend, and exercise helps improve that condition to where we don't have it. So that's another major way that it helps with weight loss. Of course, the heart and cardiovascular system, everybody knows how important that is. It helps lower blood pressure. It helps lower cholesterol and triglycerides. It raises good cholesterol. It strengthens the heart muscle so that it doesn't have to work so hard. It also reduces platelet stickiness. And with regular physical activity, a person can reduce 6 of 11 coronary risk factors. So we've already mentioned blood pressure, lower cholesterol, triglycerides, strengthen the heart. You can see that 6 of 11 coronary risk factors, exercise helps. And with heart disease being the number one killer, I would think this would be something we'd really need to pay attention to. There's no drug out there that will do this. Another thing exercise does is it helps guard against cancer by improving your immune system. And again, it's oxygenating the cells. Cancer can't thrive in an oxygen environment. So exercise oxygenates the cells. The psychological and mental benefits are, well documented. A study published in the American Journal of Epidemiology found that sports or exercise is strongly associated with decreased symptoms of anxiety, depression, and that just rundown feeling of malaise. You're just tired all the time. Again, it's elevating the mood, calming the nerves, because it's increasing. It helps the brain function, which I'm going to get to in a minute, but one of the ways it does is that because it's increasing your neurotransmitters that help raise the mood and calm the nerves. It helps raise endorphins, which are, endorphins are those brain chemicals that produce a sense of well-being. We feel happy. They activate the pleasure centers of the brain. And they also reduce blood pressure and promote relaxation. So exercise also helps with stress and tension. It deals with that fight or flight problem that stress brings to us. Some say it's virtually impossible to sustain a state of mental anger or depression or anxiety during and right after exercise. Dr. John Grice, the author of Running Out of Depression, conducted a study of 28 depressed patients and found that those patients who ran controlled their depression much better than those who were treated with psychotherapy. I've heard of psychologists saying go out and beat a tree or something, but some way to just release that anger. But it's kind of probably the exercise part of it is what's helping accomplish that. Another benefit of exercise: longevity. Research shows that for every hour of exercise, we gain 2-hour increase in longevity. And some of the people that I know that have lived a long time, despite horrible eating habits, despite smoking or things like that, they walked everywhere they went. Everywhere they went. And so the studies are showing that even a little exercise can go a long way. One study found that just 15 minutes a day of moderate intensity activity extended people's lives by 3 years. One study showed that exercising at very light levels reduced deaths from all causes by 14%. And so, the anti-aging people are all over this about how it'll help extend life. Another wonderful benefit: energy. Who couldn't use more energy? Ask any couch potato or someone who's been sick and lying around for a long time. If it seems like the more you lay around, the tireder you are, whereas moving stimulates the energy in our bodies. A few days of inactivity lowers your basal metabolism, replaces muscle mass with fat, increases loss of bone density, and leads to a reduction in oxygen to the cells. So again, if you want, one study at Duke University Medical Center recently found that failing to stay fit increased the risk of heart disease and stroke to the same extent that smoking a pack of cigarettes a day did, and attributed physical inactivity to more than 5 million deaths worldwide per year, which is more than those caused by smoking. So, that's pretty impressive. And then brain function, with dementia, Alzheimer's, as rampant as it is right now, the research about showing how it improves brain function, cognition. We just got the May-June issue in a Life Extension magazine. They had a whole article in there about how exercise improves cognition. And it said that, and it was mostly your resistance weight training exercise that did this. It preserves and enhances brain function. It not only inhibits degeneration of the brain, but also promotes creation of new brain cells. And it enhances the production of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which if you've ever done much research on Alzheimer's, this is a neurotransmitter they're finding is way low in Alzheimer's patients and needs to be supplemented. But exercise increases acetylcholine in the brain. And again, acetylcholine plays a role in cognition, memory, learning, and so on. So, how do we go about, adapting a lifestyle of exercise if you aren't already doing so? I have 6 steps. One is to first check and see what kind of shape you're in. You really probably, if you've been sedentary and inactive, you probably really should go check with your doctor first, especially if there's some conditions here that you really should check with your doctor before you begin a rigorous exercise program. If you've been sedentary, if you're over 35, if you're under 35 but have heart problems, like high blood pressure, if you smoke, if you have pain or pressure in your chest, arm, teeth, jaw, or neck with exercise, if you have dizziness or fainting, if you have an abnormal heartbeat, or have extreme breathlessness with physical exertion. So, definitely see your doctor first. And then also, another thing you really need to do is to warm up and cool down after every session. Don't underestimate how important that is. So many people get injured when they try to exercise because they're not doing this. And I just talked to a guy the other day, he'd been off from working out for a while and just went right back to thinking he could go right back and do what he had been doing and just went straight into it and of course tore his shoulder up, and now he's been months, unable to work. I see this all the time. I've injured myself a time or two too, and then there you are months can't work out because you've got a joint problem. So it's very important. Also, it's important to drink a lot of water while you exercise. And so number 2, select an activity you enjoy. If you love playing racquetball or riding a bike or swimming or walking, you've got to do something that you're going to stick with. And number 3, develop a routine. And this really requires, for some people, you've got to look at your schedule and figure out when you can, do this, and do it at least 5 times a week. And make that your time. We don't let other things get in the way of eating or other important things in life. But boy, we'll let everything get in the way of exercising, which is why one person says it's really good to exercise in the morning, because then you can never put it off. You've already done it. It's done. So you can't, I don't have time, I'll just put it off. No, you've already got it in. So again, don't let anything get in the way. And an ideal thing, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, do your aerobic training. Tuesday and Thursday, do weight training, something like that. Find a workout partner, number 4. If you're meeting with someone else, you have that accountability. It's so easy to just say, I'll just skip it this time. But if someone else is counting on you to show up and be there too, then you're far more apt to stick with it. And if you can't find someone to work out with you, then Dr. Weil suggests doing something like the books on tapes. He says he'll be listening to a book on tape and he'll be so involved in the narrative that his 30 minutes are up and he hasn't even realized, he's gone past his 30 minutes. So I personally love to walk in the morning, and I get my prayer time in that way, so I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And so anything you can do like that, helps. Number 5, monitor your target heart rate, which again, your target heart rate is, you measure your heart rate by feeling your, counting from 0 to 5 and count how many times your heart beats, and then add a 0 to that. So if it beats like 14 times in 5 seconds, then you would add a 0 to that. That's 140, and that is your heart rate. That's your pulse. Then what you want to do, so then you decide, well, is that a good number or not? Well, that depends on what your training zone is or what your target heart rate is. So your peak heart rate is 55 to 85% of your maximum heart rate. So what's your maximum heart rate? You take 220 and subtract your age. and that is your maximum heart rate. You should never really go over that ever. You should never even get up that high. Try to keep it about 50 to 80% of that rate, and that is a good rate to stay at the whole time you're training. Now, again, Dr. Weil says this is complicated, and he has a better way to tell, and that is, if a period of aerobic exercise does not leave you feeling you have labored with your heart beating faster and your breathing stimulated, you have not done it vigorously enough. But if it leaves you collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath, you've overdone it. I like his method better. And number 6, don't quit. No matter how much you try to make it fun, it's going to be hard to stick with it. Everything's going to come in the way. So, eventually there's going to be times when it's just a chore, but you just don't quit. Just keep doing it. Don't let anything stop you. So when is the best time to exercise? Whenever you'll do it. Again, that morning is really nice because you benefit from the increased metabolism all day. But, whenever you can fit it in, that's the best time. And what is the best exercise? The one you'll do. So that's the things to keep in mind. So we've learned that exercise is our best friend in the pursuit of good health because it helps burn fat, protects against the top 2 killers, heart disease and cancer, helps us live longer, reduces depression and anxiety, gives us more energy, and improves our brain function. What more could we want from something that's absolutely free? I mean, you don't have to spend any money on exercise, but, if going to a gym is your thing, then by all means do that. That's, it's worth every dime. But we're all given the same 168 hours a week. And from that amount, you need to only find 5.5 hours to exercise. Make a date in your day planner to exercise at least 4 times a week, or although 5 or 6 is even better. As the Nike ad says, just do it. Do we have any questions that I probably can't answer because I'm not an expert on this? I tell you, this has been more for me than anyone. I'm trying to make this a non-negotiable in my life. You have your non-negotiables, and I'm trying to make exercise a non-negotiable. This is something I'm going to do. So anyway, is there any questions, comments, suggestions? No? Who all's going to exercise from now on?
I'm walking 5 times a week. Get up, drive a school bus, and grungy clothes, come home, take the dog for a brisk walk, 35 minutes.
That is great. Yeah. It helps.
Tired also.
He said he's retired. Well, that's great.
You got to do something you enjoy doing. If you don't really like it or really enjoy it, don't stick with it.
Yeah, you got to do something you enjoy.
You really got to like it, especially when you get older.
Yeah.
Like me, I like to play racquetball. It's a pretty fun game.
Yes. All right. Well, let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back for part 2.